Well, thank you all for coming today. I want to welcome you to the April Ask the Experts. I'm really excited. We have 4 amazing experts today, so I feel like this is going to be even better because we have more people. So I just want to thank you all for coming. We appreciate your attendance, and for those online, we have a huge amount of people signed up on Zoom today, so we appreciate you doing that. My name is Lisa Arneson. I am the Workforce and Education Coordinator at the Tri-City Regional Chamber. And this has just been such a fun program to take on. And I think everyone will agree, you can take away something. So every time that we have speakers, I find new things and I'm writing down. So thank you for your time and effort, you guys. Also, there is a drawing today. We have 3 fabulous prizes. So if you didn't drop your business card in, go ahead and do that. If you don't have a business card, we have little blank ones you can put your name on. So we did want to ask everyone in the room, if we're going to go around and ask you to give your name, your company, and where do you think your company is at on this issue of retention? Doing a good job would be a 10. Not doing a good job would be a 1. So give us a number between 1 and 10 of where you kind of think your company lands. And we always start on this side of the room. So today I'm going to go to the opposite side of the room. So anyway, if you want to give your name, company, and where you guys think you fall on retention.
You bet. I'm Aaron Bertner. I'm with the Tri-City Union Gospel Mission, and overall, I'd probably put us about a 7.
I'm Larry Davis, also with the Tri-City Union Gospel Mission. Yeah, probably about a 7. There's a lot of people there less than a year, and a lot of people are over 5 years right now.
That's awesome.
Pretty good.
Okay, we'll move over here.
I'm Jeannie Deno. I work for Columbia Ability Alliance, and I think our retention as of today is about an 8.
That's awesome. Very high numbers. Okay, we'll go over here.
You're gonna get a lot of
I know.
ability
You
around.
guys are awesome.
We show up. My name is Sarah Howden, philanthropy officer with Columbia Ability Alliance. And I think I don't know our retention numbers offhand, but I think our engagement is very high. I'd say an 8 or a 9.
Awesome.
I'm Michelle Holt. I'm the executive director for the Ben Franklin Council of Governments, and I would definitely say our retention is an 8.
Strong.
I am Libby Blatchel. I'm the director of advancement at Columbia Ability Alliance. I'm going to go with a 7. Hi, I'm Kim Parrott. I'm the chief operating officer at Columbia Ability Alliance, and retention, I'm also going to go with a 7.
Michael Novakovich, president and CEO of Columbia Ability Alliance. I'm going 7.5.
Make it different.
Andrew Mariano, CEO of the Realtor Association here in Tri-Cities. I would say 7. We have quite a few new employees and some that have been there quite a long time, so 7 or 8. So it's hard to tell. We'll see over the next couple of years.
Sounds good.
Jacob Hicks, also with the Association for Realtors, and I think 7's good.
Awesome. We'll go over to Chad's table.
Chad Yost, Community First Bank HFG Trust. And fun fact, I worked with Cheri way back when. Just a few years ago.
I'm Montee with IT Haven. I'm on the sales side of our technical team, and I don't work with Chad.
And the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not very good, 10 being well, where do you think you are at retaining employees? Just a number. Yep, just a number. 10. You guys probably are at 10. What about you?
First, I would say 10 probably.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
guys
I haven't
might
seen a lot of turn.
Okay, Elizabeth. You guys come.
We've had a tough year, so I'll be a little bit more honest than everybody else. I don't really think everybody else is a 7. Not good. Barnes and the chief of staff efficiency and Megan, we're a 4. We had like a 53% turnover last year,
wow.
so. Kind of tough year.
Yeah.
I'm Nicole Leary. I manage ABC Dino Healthcare. We're a pretty small business, so I'd say a 7 or an 8. It's pretty true for us, but.
Irish Christ with L2 Wealth Management. We are, I don't know, today we had a last day luncheon, so. No. Probably pretty good. We're probably a 7.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Juliana with Autos, HR advisor there, and I would say probably 5.5, 6.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I'm Jill Lawson, I'm the HR manager at the Auto Loan Distribution Center, and I'd say 6.
Okay. And then do you want to give?
Sorry.
No, your name, company, and where for retention, 0, none, 10 means right, where your company lies.
I'm Jen Schneider, Schneider Construction. I would say we're at an 8.
Wow, so those are pretty high numbers. That's really impressive. I think there's a lot of companies that would fall where Elizabeth is, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think our experts are gonna really have some great insight for that today. Also, if you're on Zoom, go ahead and answer that question for us as well. We always love to know who's on Zoom. And now I am gonna bring up Jessica, who is with STCU. They sponsor this event, which keeps it a free event. And we really appreciate them coming and supporting. And I'll let Jessica take it away.
Yeah, well, you know, she just got it all basically. I'm Jessica with STCU and I have a really long job title as well, so I have to say it slowly. Community Impact and Advocacy Officer. It's a new job role for me, a lateral move that I'm really happy to be in. So anyways, just wanted to thank everybody for coming to this free event. We're happy to partner with the Chamber for over 6 years for this. And I too, I don't know if I could speak very solidly for STCU and our retention rate, but I would say we're between a 7 and 8. Although I am a little curious what the expert back here actually thinks for all of us. I think that's great to get some honesty and insight there. So anyways, thank you all for coming to this event or the session and looking forward to learning from our experts.
So thank you, Jessica. Thank you. So our April topic today is unlocking employee engagement. And as I said, we have some fantastic experts. So I'm going to start with Chris, who also had the shortest bio. Which is kind of great. So Chris Bartlett is the operations supervisor for Adams Enterprise. If you're unaware, Adams Enterprise is a franchise McDonald's and owns most of the McDonald's in our region. And I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen better, well-run, managed McDonald's than what is here. They do a fantastic job. And he has 3 restaurants he oversees in Walla Walla. He's worked for the company for 20 years. And I love this. He started his career with them as a crew person, has worked his way up, and his phrase is, he's still loving it. So, anyway, I appreciate that. Next to him is Stacey Benningfield. She is also an operations supervisor at Adams Enterprise. She started with McDonald's 33 years ago and kind of the same path as Chris. Crew person, promoted to crew trainer, production caller, shift manager, assistant, first, and then restaurant manager, and now she is in that operations role. So that's an amazing, those are 2 people that work for the same company over 30 years, or 20, that's impressive to me. Also, she oversees 5 restaurants, and she partners with 2 other supervisors as subject matter experts on the topics of benefits, hiring, orientation, training, and retention and recognition. She's recently remarried, has 6 kids between them, 4 grandkids, 2 dogs, and enjoys spending time with their family and playing softball. Next, we have Cheri, who is an accomplished human resource director at Columbia Ability Alliance, who, as you heard, we're represented pretty well in the room today. She is an active member of Columbia Basin, isn't it SHRM? SHRM. I never know how to say that, I apologize. She brings a proven track record of people management with specialized expertise in project management, staffing, retention, and leadership development. She successfully led HR initiatives across many different sectors, including agriculture, general industry, and now in the nonprofit space. She's known for her commitment to excellence. She believes strong, positive workplace culture is a foundation of HR success. Whether partnering with leadership or advocating for employees, she delivers impactful, results-driven solutions. And at the end of the table here, we have Shannon Novakovich, who's a managing partner at Novawerx LLC, and she focuses on leadership development, human resources, and strategy. Shannon has over 20 years of professional leadership experience. She holds a Master's of Science in Management and Leadership from Western Governors University. She's a WSU grad, go Cougs. With a BS degree in psychology and a concentration in HR and sociology. She's a certified senior human resources professional trainer, say that 5 times fast. And she's trained in conflict resolution and mediation. She has a diverse career leading teams, and her and her husband, Michael, who's here today, are the proud parents of a boxer girl. So anyway, you have some excellent people here to hear from, and I would ask that you think about questions along the way, because we will do a time of Q&A at the end. So I will let Chris and Stacey start us off.
All right, so as Lisa said, I'm Chris with Benningfield Enterprises. We're the McDonald's in the area. We have all the McDonald's stores in the Tri-Cities. We're out to Walla Walla, Grandview, Prosser, and we have a few in Oregon as well. I'm both humbled and honored to be here, to be considered the expert on this topic. So glad to be here and talk about this topic today. Very excited. With that, I wanted to kind of start with a study that was done by CBS News back in 2023. And with the topic of employee engagement, I want you guys to think about what the single most important survey done. What is the most important item to your employees for their job? If you surveyed and said, what's the most important element to your job? Here's 4 things I have listed on my PowerPoint. Just by a show of hands, I'm going to go through them one by one, and I want you guys to raise your hand when you think that was surveyed as the #1 response, the most important item. So the first one is an opportunity to advance, opportunity to move up. Okay, cool. I see a hand. Thank you. Second one is workplace culture and like work-life balance. Okay, I see a lot of hands. Okay, awesome. Job perks and benefits. Don't care about the job perks and benefits. How about pay? Right? At the end of the day, I need a job and I need to make money. If my job didn't pay me, I love it, but I don't know if I'd be there. Well, free Big Macs are pretty good, but things considered. You guys are spot on. When they did that survey, what they found was actually the #1 was workplace culture and work environment. Now you see pay is up there. Pay is important. You should compensate your employees. But we definitely believe at Adams Enterprises that taking care of your employees, being a people-driven business, being people first, this is what causes people to stay in the job. We were on a call, a national call for McDonald's, and we heard a number that absolutely blew our minds. A little bit of information with McDonald's again, because we've got all sorts of different industries represented. In the quick service industry, it is a high turnover job. You know, we have a lot of people that come to us, maybe they're 1-2 years into the position, it's an entry-level position. They're looking to kind of just kickstart their career, gain some skills that'll help them in life and move on to the next thing. Or a lot of young students that come to us that, you know, they're working for us while they're going to school and then they're leaving for college. So a little bit of a higher turnover rate than probably some numbers that you would be used to seeing. We run a national call and McDonald's presented their target of annual turnover at 126%. I about had a heart attack. That's an insane number. Does that number seem too high to anybody? That's crazy, right? Adams Enterprises runs about 73%, so we're about half the national target. So I would say happy to be a part of a company again that puts people first and truly believes that this is a priority. Stacey is going to dig into why our numbers are what they are.
So with us, we have different layers in place, and we've learned things over the years. It's like trial and error sometimes, but we like to build a foundation first of all. When people come to us, they get a lot of information when they get hired, and then they go to orientation. And then they have first day training, and that's 3 hours and 3 hours of just people talking at you. So we believe repetition is really important, but we like to lay that foundation. So we start with some benefits. These are some of the ones that we offer. The ones that are most intriguing to our employees are flexible hours. Like Chris said, we have lots of different scenarios of people that we work with. We have moms and dads who are working. Sometimes they're working 2 jobs, so they're trying to coordinate that. We have students who are going to school, they're working. We have high school students coming to us. It's their first time job. They're so excited. And then they get in and they go, oh my gosh, school, work, that's a lot. And then you throw in the ones who do the sports too. But we definitely work, you know, I mean, they didn't realize how busy they were gonna be. So we definitely work with them on that. Students, again, they might get a heavy workload, and they might need to cut back on work. We will work with them so that they can do that and manage all those things. Tuition assistance, again, is really important to us. We understand not everybody's gonna come to us or they apply with us and go, yes, I see all the opportunities up above. I'm gonna make this my career. That was my mentality when I started with McDonald's a long time ago. I said to myself these very words, I'm going to apply at McDonald's, I'm gonna work there 6 months and I'm gonna find a better job. That's what I said. And love the job. But we also know that's not everybody's path and that we're kind of a stepping stone. So McDonald's assists with tuition. And then the very bottom one, I want to call that out, a boss who cares. We're definitely, you gotta have that. I know we have had that. It's been modeled for us and then we try to do that with our employees as well. You just gotta take time and spend that with your employee. Then we bring them in, let's say get hired for orientation, and these are just some of the things that we cover during that time. One that's really important is the respectful workplace. I mean, it's all important, but we really emphasize the respectful workplace. You got a lot of people who have never had a job before, so they don't understand kind of what are the expectations and the standards of working at a job. No, you can't show those jokes at work. No, you can't say those things. That's inappropriate, right? So we have to teach some of these things. We also open the door so that they know who can we go to if we do have a problem, right? Do we have a conflict, somebody's being inappropriate, how do we handle those things? So that's what that environment is for. And Chris is up. We're bouncing back and forth.
I with training, along with employee engagement and having good benefits and taking care of your employees is really training them the correct way and making them feel confident in their role. So we're proud of the system that McDonald's uses for training. When executed properly, it really is very engaging for the employee. It is about having a lot of different resources. I personally am a big believer there's no such thing as having too many tools available to be able to do the job well. We have a lot of kind of follow-up ways of training and a lot of ways of tracking how training has been done and been done effectively. The big one I want to call out there is up there in the corner. It says shoulder to shoulder training. So for us, that is side by side for the duration of an entire shift, where when an employee is learning a new station, they're taught by the expert and they stay with them and they're able to ask questions. And it's not just, you know, throw them on a cash register and it's got pictures, good luck. That's terrifying to me. It's done the right way. I would also call out part of our training philosophy is an employee's very first day, they train with the restaurant manager, so the highest up person for that location. And they give them a tour of the restaurant, introduce them to the employees and just kind of set the tone for how their employment is gonna go. With recognition, this is another key. I think you could probably say this about any job, you know, it'd be easy to kind of get into a job and just go through the day to day. And when there's a lot of repetition, a lot of the same thing, you kind of just feel like you're doing the grind every day. So one of the keys that we really focus on is, well, how do I make that fun? How do I make it more engaging for employees? We're very competitive at McDonald's. We love to compete. So we have a few different things. We have our leaderboards, we have screens up front in our restaurants that actually track the drive-through times for all of the stores in the company. And it's constantly changing depending on who's the fastest, so we can compete with the other stores and see who's gonna win. We ask our managers every single month at our company managers meetings to bring who they're gonna recognize on their management team and for what specific behaviors, why they're proud of that manager and how they're gonna reward them to get them a prize or basket, take their picture, stuff like that. We have this system's called QSRTV. This is wonderful for just constantly, I guess yet another screen up front, but setting updates and news and just kind of need to know information, but also great for recognition. There's some automation behind it, so we can track employees' birthdays or work anniversaries. And then we can also upload our own material. I personally had an experience where an employee in one of my restaurants, they found a wallet in the dining room and the wallet happened to have $800 cash in it. And they went to the manager and they said, somebody's gonna be looking for this. You know, can you lock it up? Can we, you know, make sure this is safe? So of course, that's what we would do. Turned out to be one of our regular customers. Dave came in and said, hey, I lost my wallet. I happen to have a lot of cash in it. Oh yeah, we have it right here. An employee turned it in. He was so grateful and just so unbelievably thankful, you know, wrote letters to McDonald's and was just couldn't believe that, wow, you know, thank you for the employee's integrity, you know, because it would have been easy to just take the money out of the wallet. So obviously, I wanted to thank and reward the employee, and we ended up doing a little bio for her and a little story and putting it up on that QSR TV, so it's constantly flashing all of our employees. And that would definitely be a key for employee engagement. When you have employees exhibit behavior that is very positive or that you want to really, you know, this part of creating that work culture, that's what you want to hone in on and really shout out to your team. Say, I really want to thank this person for their integrity, for their work standards, things of that nature. And then stores do their own recognition programs. We have people days once a month is what we call it. Again, very people first oriented, in which the stores can do something fun as a way to recognize and just say thank you to their employees for all the hard work they do. Our employees love their potlucks. We bring in different kinds of food or maybe different games or prizes, raffles, things like that. Stacey,
Okay,
here we go.
so the last piece that we gotta cover is retention. And we do surveys, anonymous surveys twice a year, kind of gives them a voice to give feedback about their restaurant and ask specific questions, which is very helpful. And then one thing that Chris and I do is we make sure as a company that we hold them accountable for the actions, the feedback that was given to them, and they pick their top item and it has to be posted in their break room. So the team can know, hey, this was the most common thing requested. And so the store knows we are taking action on their feedback. It's not just, hey, you filled in these numbers, good. We're moving on to the next thing. So as I was saying earlier, we do first aid training. So that training session is done with the restaurant manager. We believe it's that important to set that good first impression. So they invest 3 hours, 3.5 hours sometimes with those new employees, just covering the same topics. Giving them a tour of the restaurant. I remember my first day and it was nothing like this, so I totally love that we do these things. I was so nervous, I didn't know where to put my stuff. And so we try to remove some of that tension and nervousness from them by having them this setting, the first day training. As Chris was saying, we do people days. What that means is after an employee has been with us for 30 days, the manager's gonna sit down and they have specific questions that they ask. Again, we're trying to get a pulse on how well are they liking the job? Did they get good training? Were there future plans? Do they like their schedule? Again, just to gather feedback. So if there's a situation that we can address it quickly and keep that employee with us, because sometimes people won't tell us and they'll just leave. And then that doesn't give us the opportunity to make it right. After the 30 days, we sit down, well, 60 days, but then we give them a review. This is more performance-based. So we let them know what they're doing well at and then what they need to work on. And then we give them some goals. So again, gathering some feedback, that was the job, is everybody treating you, good, anything I need to know about. Because I don't know about you guys, but in our industry, when the boss is not in the store, sometimes people behave a little differently. I don't know why, but they do. Connection sessions. This is where the restaurant manager will grab a group of 3 people, 4 people, sit down in a group setting and then talk with them. Again, they have specific questions that they gear those towards, and they're trying to gather feedback about their restaurant. Then we meet with our employees every 6 months and we evaluate the wage. And it's performance-based again, it's more detailed than the 60-day review. Just trying to make sure we're touching base as often as we can to gather that feedback. We do monthly managers meetings. We feel it's very important to keep our managers informed. It's not a secret about the things that are going on. We as the restaurant managers and supervisors, we meet monthly and we get information. And then those store managers take that back to their teams and then they share as need be. Okay. And then touch points. So we have these time clocks with their iPads and they have to take the picture and that's how they clock in. Then that will ask them a question about what's an example?
How's your training been
Yeah.
on a particular station?
And so they'll rate that. It's just, so before they can even clock in, they have to answer the question. So So we're not gonna do it after the shift, we're doing it before. No, it's just again to just gather feedback, and then that information is going to, I think Chris and another supervisor. And we're just starting that out, but we're finding it to be very helpful. So with all that, at the end of the day, what we really hope is that through all the things that we do, we are building a strong, confident employee who's committed and wants to continue to work with us. We try to create that environment where, especially when we have young people that come and work for us, you know, they wanna go out sometimes and try something new, and they do. But we have many people that wanna come back and work with us because of the environment that was created. So that's what we hope for. Okay.
All right. So my name is Cheri Montee. Of course, I'm with Columbia Ability Alliance, and thank you, team, for coming out. Awesome. I couldn't think about employee engagement when I was told about this topic without thinking about the workplace culture that I'm lucky enough to be a part of. Culture in action is what employee engagement is all about. Employee engagement is crucial to your business. It's going to help to be able to drive your productivity. It's going to foster innovation. It's going to drive better outcomes for your business. And that's what you want. That's where everybody wins. And as you heard earlier, employee surveys are an important piece of what we do to be able to gauge whether we're getting it right. We go out there and we ask the questions. How's your pay? How are you doing at work? And I see her taking a picture now. So we go out there, we ask these questions in these surveys, and we find out, hey, are our employees satisfied? And then we build action plans around that satisfaction survey, right? And those are good things. That's a piece of engagement. But engagement is transactional. Employee satisfaction is transactional. It's what you get, not what you give. Employee engagement is about what you give. You go to work and you're gonna get things like pay, you're gonna get benefits, you're gonna get job security, flexible schedules, career development, office atmosphere, and celebrations at work, which are my personal favorite. But again, that is transactional. Employee engagement is transformational for your business. That's where you start getting that discretionary effort, that effort that people are giving those extra hours, and how do we get there and what does it look like? Well, let's start with what it looks like. It starts with enthusiasm in the workplace. You're going to see people actively pursuing these opportunities for growth, going the extra mile, increased productivity, as I said, performance, innovation, and ultimately retention, which is the goal that we're all trying to get to. So those are great things, and that's what we want. But let's be real. There are barriers to engagement at work. These barriers are going to show up time and time again. These are blockers for us to be able to get to that stage of employee engagement. First is employee satisfaction, but engagement happens, but what can block it is psychological safety. And I know that we're going to get some more information on that from Shannon in just a few minutes, but that's where you need to create a safe space for them to be able to come and talk to you without fear of retaliation. We got some sketchy communication going on out there, maybe poor communication, maybe over communication. And then finally, we just have some clear out leadership issues. These leadership issues can be small at first, but they can become very evasive. Things that can be handled and managed easily up front don't get managed. And then it ends up putting bricks on a wall between you and your employee. And what happens is it affects their employee wellness at work. And then it ultimately ends up being turnover in your organization, and nobody wins there. So what we really want to get to is opening the door to employee engagement in your workplace. How do we get there? We're in a bad place right now. We're not, I promise, but we are in a bad place out there. And so we need to start with creating a culture of recognition. Chris was able to touch on some of those ways that you can recognize others. But I couldn't think about a better quote than Doug Conan with CEO Campbell's. He said that you can't win the marketplace before you win the workplace. And no, that is not Doug Conan. He
has a unique quote as well. So one of the things that is renowned about Doug Conant, who is the former CEO of Campbell's Soup, he wrote over 30,000 handwritten notes to his employees in recognition of what they did. When is the last time that you received a handwritten note from your leader saying, thank you, I want to recognize you for what you did? That's pretty special. And leaders, when is the last time that you wrote that handwritten note? I can tell you that a handwritten note and a thank you is going to go a lot farther than a $25 gift card. But what's next beyond the recognition? Well, the 4 cornerstones that I would like to share with you today begin with connecting through shared values. This is not my framework. This is the framework for an amazing book called Conscious Accountability. I did on my flyer put a QR code that you can go out there and you can purchase that book. I also put an Amazon gift card in the back that you hopefully can win and you can go out and buy that book. So group read is what we're doing right now with Conscious Accountability. And I have to tell you that this is an amazing book to do that. It's also a way to be able to find out how the people in your organization are connected to the values in your organization. Do you know what your personal values are? Have you ever stopped to think about it? And do those personal values align with the team values in your organization? And why does that matter? Let me start with telling you that your organization's team values are their expectations of you. So when their expectations of you don't align with your values that are guiding your thoughts and your behaviors, it's not going to work. There's going to be conflict. It's important that you understand the people that are working for you. Sit down with them either at the hiring process, which is the greatest place to start, and ask them 3 to 5 values that define them. The other thing you can do is say you're in a team meeting, start with an icebreaker. What are 3 to 5 values that define you and how does that show up in the workplace? We got to attend a workshop this morning and I got to hear them say that back to me and I was like, this just affirms everything that I'm saying today. It's not really good. So definitely connect through those shared values. The next cornerstone is honoring individual needs. Definitely aligning your values is going to increase your engagement at work. But the next thing is honoring everybody's individual professional needs. The 3 needs that show up a lot of times at work are autonomy, the need for mastery, and the need for relatedness. Let's start with autonomy. One of the words that came up this morning of a desire at work is freedom. Freedom is the ability to be able to do my job, given the tools and the trust from my boss to be able to do those. If I fail, then I fail. And I learn from that failure. But autonomy is needed to be able to do that. And as a leader, sometimes we need to evaluate our motives. Nobody wants to be a micromanager, and I don't think any of you think that you are. But if you are spending too much time over an employee and a task, it may be because of your need to nurture them. And are you nurturing them to the point of stifling their growth? Examine your own motivations as you're leading your people. The next thing is mastery. And I can't think of mastery without thinking of the masters over the weekend, right? Rory McElroy. Am I saying his name right? McElroy. I saw his story over the weekend and he finally got that green jacket winning the Masters. He did that over many times of trying and failing. He was able to do that gradually. Your employees do the same thing as they're getting that autonomy to be able to do the work that you trusted them to do. They will gradually master that. There are times where you're going to have to go in and give them some assistance and maybe break those things down into a little bit smaller chunks that they can learn a little bit easier. And that's okay too, but allow them to be able to become masters at what you hired them to do. The final thing that we need to do in honoring their individual needs is that need for relatedness. We all want to be able to relate to the people that we work with. How do we do that? When you're in group meetings, and I know a lot of you work online, and that's okay because you're still getting together in group meetings. Make sure that you're sharing the projects that you're working on, how those projects could maybe be helped out by the people that are on those meetings or in those meetings, and then be able to share wins. That's an important way to be able to relate to the people that you're working with.
The third cornerstone is modeling vulnerable learning. This is a really difficult task when you're a new leader and you don't want to look vulnerable to your people. But I can tell you that over time, you've learned a lot of things through trial and error. Being able to share those stories, and even if they're failures, to be able to inspire them, that has helped me a ton. When a leader comes up to me and says, let me tell you about a time. You didn't go through that for nothing. Make yourself vulnerable, step out, and also leaders, don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I'll get the answer, and can you help me? It goes a long way. It makes people feel like they're needed. And finally, make room for everyone at the table. This is a big one. Everyone should have a voice at the table. In a group of people, when you're gathering, do you always hear the same voices speaking up? I know my boss is thinking, yeah, it's you. Say, thank you, Cheri, for your participation. Can we hear from someone else? Get that quiet one. I know what you think. Get that quiet one after the meeting and have a chance to be able to talk to them. Hey, we didn't hear from you. I know it might be intimidating in this big setting, but it's really important that we hear everybody's voice, because everybody in the organization is valued and they need to know they have a place at the table. So finally, in closing, I want you to know that these cornerstones are not a one and done. These are intentional, they are ongoing, and if you slip on one of them and you get busy and you're not able to do these things, get yourself back on track and know that you do not have to have manager in your title to build engagement in your organization. Anything I can do to help, I'm always here. Thank you.
How are we all doing this afternoon? You guys are such a quiet group. Okay. Cheri, that's technological. Okay, there we go. All right. So Cheri gave me a nice lead in. We're gonna talk about psychological safety. I know, sounds thrilling, right? Specifically, we're gonna talk about how psychological safety and trust contribute to attracting and retaining top talent. Because that's what we want. We don't only want to attract it, we want to keep it, right? We're gonna be a little bit selfish with that. So psychological safety, how many of you are familiar with that in the room today? Okay, so some head nods, great. This is the interactive piece. So who would like to share their definition or their understanding of psychological safety? Come on, guys. I'll leave the sister hanging. Yes, thank you.
Seatbelt.
A seatbelt. Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that. All right, so psychological safety is when individuals feel comfortable sharing ideas and taking risks without fear of negative consequence. So Cheri talked about this a little bit. Think about that statement. That is pretty impactful, pretty powerful, right? Okay, so when we're talking about psychological safety in the form of recruitment and retention, what does that actually mean? Why is it important? And why would we want it? Yes.
Because change and growth are the only constants that we have.
No, absolutely. I love that. So what are some of the benefits of psychological safety? Why should we make it a priority? Why is it important? When you have psychological safety in an organization, there are many areas that it's going to impact. First of all, it builds trust. A cornerstone of psychological safety is building trust. We want to trust that differing views and opinions will be respected, right? If you have a successful organization, you need to recognize that your people are the cornerstone of that. You want differing views and opinions. That makes us stronger. It builds inclusion. So individuals are accepted and valued for their unique contributions. Take a look around the room, just real quickly. You have a lot of interesting, oh my God, interesting individuals with different backgrounds, different views, different perspectives. You want that in your organization. You want that diversity. We want that diversity of thought. It builds safety and learning. So I love this. Individuals feel safe to ask questions and safe to make mistakes and learn from them. How many of you have made a mistake in the past couple of weeks? Oh, come on. I mean, I have, probably yesterday, maybe this morning even. I don't know, you could ask my husband. So, I'm a big believer that mistakes are our best teachers. It doesn't mean I love making a mistake, quite the contrary. However, I have gotten some great lessons from mistakes that I have learned. If I am operating in a psychologically safe environment, I will share my mistake freely with others, because I don't want them to make the same mistake. I want them to learn from that. Why put someone else through pain if you don't have to? It builds safety for individuals as a contributor. Individuals are empowered to share ideas, challenge assumptions, and be an active participant. You want people to be empowered. You want them to be able to share those ideas. Because hopefully, when they're sharing those ideas, it's driving us towards a better outcome as an organization. And you want people to be an active participant. Cheri talked about that. She touched on that. They want you to be active. They want you to speak up. They want you to come forward and share those ideas. I want to talk about challenging assumptions for just a minute. Have any of you ever challenged an assumption and maybe, I don't know, it didn't go so well for you? I certainly have. And there were negative consequences attached to that. So let's talk about some negative consequences. Maybe when you have a differing opinion or you want to challenge a process, but it isn't received well. And maybe you experience ridicule from your leader, your peers, possibly even people that you manage. Doesn't feel so good, right? So all of a sudden you quit sharing. And that's harmful to an organization. We don't want to see that happen. I'll tell you, I worked with a group of individuals and they had some differing opinions and they would speak up. And it didn't go well for them. As a matter of fact, they actually coined a phrase for it. They called it going to 12:30. We're not talking about lunch. We are talking about experiencing negative consequences from individuals in their group. This showed up as, being on the out group. You ever experiencing that? Maybe you've been excluded from conversations, excluded from projects, maybe that you needed to be a part of. Excuse me. The only good part that this group shared about being at 12:30 is it was temporary. It wasn't long before somebody else showed up and then the attention was directed towards them and they were on the out group. Here's the problem with this. First of all, it's painfully obvious, not only to the group that's experienced it, but to others that are watching it. And secondly, it totally annihilates any form of psychological safety that an organization may have had. But let's take it a step further. What do you think that did to their retention rates? I can tell you, those individuals that were experiencing the 12:30 phenomenon were actively searching out other opportunities. You're losing your top talent. Now, let's think about it in terms of recruitment. When you're struggling at work or an issue's happening, who do you talk to? Talk to your spouse, friends, colleagues, people outside of your organization. It gets out into the community. And so then, if you're like me, and I'm talking to my good friend Cheri, and I'm like, hey, there's this organization, they are hiring for this amazing position. I am so qualified, I am perfect. And Cheri's like, oh, hey girl, no, I gotta tell you, this is what I heard. Do you think I'm gonna apply for that position? Maybe, but I can tell you I'm gonna think twice about it. So, how do we build psychological safety in an organization? Now, the first thing you need to know about building psychological safety in an organization, it is much like turning the Titanic. Okay. It is a really slow process. However, I can promise you this. If you have psychological safety in your organization, it is going to pay dividends. It is not only going to pay dividends in your recruitment, your retention, it's going to pay dividends with employee engagement, with them wanting to come back and work for your organization. The first thing that you would need to do is to make it a priority to share the vision with the team and create buy-in. It has to start at the top. It has to start with the leader. And then it needs to go through every single layer of your managers, your supervisors, your team leads, all of them, and all the way down to every staff person. Why every staff person? Because they need to know. They need to know that this is what you're doing. This is what you're working on. They need to be like, okay, so I could go to Michael. I can have these conversations because they're talking about psychological safety. So this is a safe spot, right? Come up with ways to facilitate conversations that encourage people speaking up. Okay. Your first endeavor into this might be a little quiet. You might be doing a lot of talking. There may be a lot of crickets. Because if you're like me, and I'm a skeptic, right? So you tell me this and I'm gonna be like, okay. You walk that out, you show me, I'm gonna poke at it and I'm gonna watch from a distance. But I can tell you, if you keep having these safe spaces, you keep creating them, people will talk. They will start to feel safe. They will see you walk that out. Establish a process for how mistakes are handled. When you make a mistake, what is your knee-jerk emotion? Anybody? Fear. Yes, 100% fear. Remove that barrier. If people know how you handle mistakes and what your expectations are, they know what to expect from you, you're removing the fear. So they're gonna come up and they're gonna say, hey, Libby, that marketing thing, yeah, boy, didn't land well. But hopefully that's not. They're gonna know that Libby's got their back. They're gonna know what to expect from her. They're gonna know what they need to bring to her and say, hey, but I did this. And this is how I'm gonna fix this. And this is how I'm gonna correct it. Honor innovation and creativity. You may be thinking, why in the world what does that have to do with psychological safety? Well, first of all, who doesn't want to work for an innovative and creative organization? I mean, I do, 100%. If there is a way to, work smarter, not harder, better process, sign me up. The better processes are going to come from the most interesting places that you may not even suspect. If you are encouraging people and they come to you with an idea, it might be the best idea ever. It might save you all the money in the world. But if you don't honor innovation and creativity and you shut people down and you don't value them and they don't listen, then that's going to be a barrier to that. They're not going to feel safe. It could be the next greatest idea. You never know. Honor that. Encourage people. Embrace productive conflict. I love this. I would not recommend starting out with this. Build a nice, solid base of psychological safety. But some really cool things can happen with productive conflict. We all need a little push and pull. We all need a little tug. It makes us all better. If you're going to do this, and I would highly encourage that you do after you have that base, there are 3 things that I always tell my teams. There are 3 rules. We are respectful. We keep our tone neutral, and we do not interrupt or talk over one another. And then I appoint someone and say, okay, you're the referee. So in case this goes some sort of way that you don't want it to go, you've got a real strong person that's like, hey, time out. Remember, we don't interrupt, we're respectful, and we have a neutral tone. A really cool byproduct of embracing productive conflict is you know, we've all got them, those couple of individuals, and you're like, oh, I don't know, are they gonna be my ones that throw down in the middle of this table right here? I have seen these individuals come together because they enjoy this sort of thing, and then they realize that it's okay, and they can have a conversation. And before you know it, their BFFs going off and doing amazing things for your organization. It's a pretty cool byproduct. Lastly, celebrate wins. You know, and Cheri was great about this, you know, Stacey's been great about it, about talking about how they celebrate employees, right? This is the fun thing. Your teams run really hard. They're sacrificing time with their families, all the things. Celebrate that. That's how they feel valued. Who doesn't want to come work for a cool company that's doing all the celebrations and all the parties? Who doesn't want to work for a really cool company and stay with a really cool company where they're acknowledged and they're valued? There's a lot to unpack with psychological safety. We're gonna have Q&A here in a few minutes. I will hang out afterwards. If you have any specific questions about this, I would love to chat with you. But I just want to thank you for your time and attention.
You guys gave us a lot to think about. I know I'm writing down ideas and things. So does anybody in the room have a question to start off? If not, I have one from online.
I have a question.
When, oh.
So mine was for you guys at McDonald's. So you mentioned that when you guys do a training, you do a training side by side. When the trainer is doing something, everybody else follows suit. Are you doing that, I'm guessing, until they get it? How long does it take for one of these trainings to be developed? If you were to implement a new training, how long do you think it would take?
How long do you think the implementing a new training system would take to develop? Is that the question?
The reason I'm asking is because in a company like ours, we're a smaller MSP. So for us, one person wears a lot of hats.
Sure.
And with those hats, there's not a lot of training that goes attached to that. So that's why I'm asking.
I think it would differ organization to organization. We're kind of lucky in the fact that it's so structured, being from such a large corporation, that stuff is essentially done for us. And this is, okay, here's the process you need to follow, at least the basic foundation of the steps to the training. What you would need to look at, I would think, is how many people involved in the organization, how much time does it take for training, what aspects need to be trained on, and then kind of work it backwards from there.
Do you know if McDonald's outsources those, or do you guys do the trainings yourself? Is that developed in-house?
It's developed by McDonald's corporate.
Thank you.
I have an online question that I think was really good. I think it's about psychological safety, but I think it, back up here, it applies to other people. Let me find it, what they said. So they said, I found that the more we focused on psychological safety, the more critical teams have become. So how do you balance the freedom to express how they feel with accountability when they aren't performing and just becoming more comfortable being negative? And then someone else said, kind of, they use that excuse of, I don't feel safe, but it's not maybe true. So I think, you know, Cheri, you spoke about, I think obviously Shannon, that was your thing, but I think anybody can speak to that question as well, Shannon, so.
I do, as far as creating that space, when you're entering into a conversation where there's gonna be a disciplinary or a corrective action, it's important to make sure that your timing is right first. Because a lot of times you're entering into those conversations, you might be highly emotional because you're upset with maybe some repeated actions. And you've experienced bad, results from the actions of that employee. So make sure that your headspace is right. And then when you're going in to schedule that conversation with that person, make sure that the time is right for them and that you have somebody else in that room and that person feels safe with that person in the room too.
because that's gonna be able to make sure that it's not just a one-on-one conflict, you got another person in the room. And if it's another leader that they feel comfortable with, that's great, even better. So creating that safe space and making sure to pick your time would be my advice in that.
I would also say that, you know, generally, when you have those difficult conversations, there are actions leading up to that. So if you're having ongoing conversations, and say it is discipline, about an unacceptable behavior, this shouldn't be the first time that someone's having a conversation about that and bringing that to someone's attention. And much like Cheri, I always have, you know, the individuals one up that I'm speaking with, along with HR present. So that will keep you, you know, provide some safeguards in that area. And then just, you know, gently, politely calling it out for what it is. You know, so if you have someone that they're being overly critical and using that as an excuse or using it as a scapegoat, you know, say, okay, well, let's talk about that and what that actually looks like, and just get back to what actually the crux of the problem is, will be really helpful.
Online, they were saying like, that's what someone responded was, that's when they use like measurable goals, performance-based things that they can, so instead of it being a general thing, it's more specific, and then that's harder to argue with, which is really good.
Yep.
In the room. Oh,
So mine's kind of, touching on what Cheri talked about, for making room for all and engagement. I've seen it take place in different ways. Sometimes a company in modern terms might call it like a chief vibe officer that's in charge of making sure that the engagement's good and that there's good working between employees. And then in some cases, like at Community First, we do an employee planning committee where we plan different things to enrich engagement between coworkers. Do you guys find more value in one way or the other? Or I know there's not a one size fits all, because every org is different and we all have different funds to make something like that happen, but it's open up for the discussion.
Yeah, I think it's gonna depend on your organization and the dynamics of the department that you might be trying to engage with. We've got different organizations under our umbrella, and not all of them can be a part of the planning of events and things, but we want to make sure that they have a voice. And even if they're not able to attend these planning sessions that we have, we reach out to their supervisors, their managers, and say, is there somebody in your organization that I can get an opinion on? And we intentionally go out to where they're at and say, what do you think? Give me some feedback. Here's my email. Give them other avenues to be able to participate and have a voice, even if they can't attend those particular sessions. So it's just going to depend on the group that you're working with, but meet them where they're at, because everybody's working situation is a little bit different, but we still want to hear from them because their voice is very important.
Were you talking about like planning activities for the workplace?
And some of that too, yeah. I know it's all inclusive and there's sometimes a company will have one person that's solely in charge of engagement, satisfaction, and then sometimes it'll be a group of people that kind of work towards that goal. I think in the ideal world, every leader would have that mindset. That's just not the case, right?
Yeah, what?
So how do you, I guess to further deep into that, how do you get everyone, you know, I think that's bigger discussions with your leadership teams, and how do you get everyone to kind of follow through them? And
Yeah, I know we have 17 stores in our company, and all of our store managers have different levels of creativity and organization. And some of us have been doing it for a long time, and I have one store manager in particular, she's like, I'm trying to come up with all the ideas and the activities and what we used to think was fun. She wasn't getting a lot of engagement. So I thought she did a really neat thing where she has like 10 managers on her team, and she would pair up to say, okay, you guys have this month, you get to plan an activity for the team. And it's actually pretty neat to see what some of them came up with. We had a lot of creative ideas come out of that by challenging other people, because sometimes people are shy and you ask them and they don't want to speak up, you know, and then when you put them with somebody else, they actually had some really neat activities. They just did the Irish games in the store, and it was pretty fun for the team. So
And I think respecting each manager's workload too. I think managers want to participate and they want these great things for their teams, but a lot of times their workloads may be a little bit heavy. Have those conversations because communication is important because you don't want to make assumptions that, well, this manager just doesn't want to participate. Go talk to them, find out what their level of participation is, and what they have time for, and just like I said, meet them where they're at.
Yes.
You guys mentioned at McDonald's, you guys do a respectful workplace training. What does that look like? Do you just go over like the handbook of like respect part?
You know, I think it's really. You know, we have certain topics that McDonald's says, okay, you have to cover X, Y, Z, but I think it's really reiterating just, you know, this is what the culture is of the restaurant. One thing that we really highlight is that, you know, if you have an issue that you would like to bring up, you know, it really is about taking that to the right person, which traditionally is probably the restaurant manager, or at least a senior member of the management team. You know, if you have a problem in the workplace and you decide to talk to all of the other crew about it, or talk to, you know, maybe complain to friends and family, like that's one thing, but those are not the people that are gonna solve the issue. So bring the right person, the topic in order to get it fixed and you'll be more likely to see results. So I think for us, it's really an emphasis on the process as much as it is the topics.
So then I'll just add to what he said, starting at orientation, we have slideshow presentation that we run through. Just because the environment has changed and some of the things that we have to address, we didn't have to 20 years ago. And then when they go to first aid training, they discuss that again, what's acceptable behavior, what's not. We have what we call the 5 steps of respect. And we talked about that at orientation. It's posted in our break rooms just to remind people, hey guys, if you have a conflict, these are the 5 steps we ask you to take to resolve the issue. If that doesn't help, then we ask them to involve the restaurant manager. All of our break rooms have a poster and it hits on harassment and those sorts of subjects. And it lists the store manager's name and phone number. It also has the supervisor's name and personal number. It also has the owner's name on it and the number, because basically what we want to do is remove any excuse of, I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how to get a hold of them. We're always available. Open door policy. So because in having to look into situations, we've come across that. So we definitely wanted to make sure and remove that reason that somebody's always available to talk to no matter what. So, yeah.
So what, from each of you, what would you say is one mistake you made early on with retention strategies, and what did you learn? So maybe a strategy you tried that didn't work or something you missed. So from each of you guys,
I think as an early leader, as a restaurant manager, when I first started kind of being in charge of an entire store, I found an interesting dynamic with some of my top managers that were getting the best results. My thinking going in was, okay, they're good at the job, they've got this. So I'm gonna focus my time and attention on the ones that need more help and give more of my attention to maybe some underperformers. And neglecting your top performers and all the things that were said today about recognition and rewarding and you know, really highlighting those positive behaviors and creating that culture using that. That was a huge learning for me, was I've kind of really shifted how I spend my time.
Oh gosh, for me, I think I was a very black and white manager. Like, this is the rule book, here we go, I'm following it, sticking to it, right? We have rules in place and they're for a reason. This is what the owner wants. No issues, right? I have 4 children and they were young when I first started managing, and then they became teenagers, then they started screwing up. And then I go, oh, shoot. You know, they show up for work late, and for us, it's, if you're late once, you get a red warning. If you're late again, you're suspended for a week. And the third time, you're subject to termination. And I stuck to that. And then I saw my kids struggling, and just as times kind of shifted, I go, "Ooh, okay, let me talk to them. What's going on? Okay, can we help? You know, what's causing you to be late?" So just to sit down and have conversations with the people and learning to be a little more compassionate. Yeah, because stuff happens to all of us. So that's mine.
Absolutely, and mine's gonna be in just the onboarding process and not valuing how important that is in each of our employees' careers and journeys with us as an organization. And that onboarding experience starts way back when they put that application in. How were they responded to? Was there follow-up? If they weren't selected, how long did it take you to tell them that they weren't selected? Were they told at all? And then when they get there, how are you creating that wonderful experience from the minute you make eye contact and shake their hand and to get them into their spot when they start their job? What's their experience that first day? Are you figuring out anything about them personally? That whole experience is going to set the tone for them with your organization. And I didn't value that as much in the beginning because it was like, I gotta get them in, I gotta get butts in the seat. And that's important, but you gotta get the right butts in the seat. And you also have to make sure that they are aligned with your values. I talked about that earlier, and that they understand what you're about and you understand what they're about. And it sets them out on the right path from the beginning. And that will create a whole nother experience for them going forward for the second day of work.
I think for me, it would be, from retention, assuming my top talent and my high performers are okay. And not making time to check in with them. I think your top performers are, you know, the ones that are the most overlooked and probably the least nurtured, because they're your top performers. I mean, they've got this, they're good, they're solid. And then all of a sudden they show up and they're like, and I'm resigning. And you're like, what happened? And you have no idea why, or maybe, you know, that they were struggling or how you could have helped. So definitely, you know, checking in and nurturing them too, because just because they seem fine doesn't necessarily mean that they're not struggling in a certain area.
So good. In the room, other questions? Okay, I have another one. So obviously you guys have all talked about different retention strategies that you use and things that you offer for benefits and things like that. In fact, some interesting ones online. One of them, they let them bring their kids to work with them. Kids under the age of 5. I think that's really spectacular, especially in light of all the childcare. But what would you say is a retention trend or a retention idea that's like you're looking at and trying to decide, should we do that? Obviously, flexible work and remote work has been a big topic, but are there any kind of new ideas that you guys would share or things that you haven't tried but might be interested in trying?
I would say, you know, volunteer day seems to be a really big thing. And, you know, allowing your staff to volunteer for organizations that they are passionate about. So one day a year that they can do it on company time, so many benefits. You know, people love to volunteer, brand them, get your name out there. You know, it's all about, you know, making sure that they're enjoying that work-life balance, but also, you know, organizations, you can get a little bit of love out of there by having your people, you know, out there in branded gear. But that's something that I've seen a lot lately, and people are just loving that. In fact, I have people ask, it's like, hey, do you do volunteer days? Can we do this? Can we do that? So that's something that's really come to the forefront lately.
I'm gonna go back to one of the things that you said, which was workplace flexibility. We did recently implement a hybrid work policy that allows those individuals that have situations in their life, whether it be caring for a parent, caring for a child, that they can actually do that for certain days of the week. Maybe it's not a regular thing, maybe it's something that they need to do intermittently, and then also flexible schedules. knowing that I have to leave at 3 o'clock, maybe I'm gonna come in an hour early, 2 days a week this week. And being open to those ideas of that flexible scheduling. And then I'm gonna throw a third one in there. We get to bring our dogs to work. So just being able to every once in a while bring my dog into my office and, she's just an amazing comfort. And, if you can encourage something like that, if it works for your environment, it doesn't for everyone. Those are great perks, and they make people happy.
Probably not good at McDonald's.
I know. Okay. I think for us, I know one thing in gathering feedback from our employees, we had one store say, hey, if we could listen to music in the grill area, we're in the kitchens. And we're like, oh, well, yeah, that's doable. So we tested it out in a couple of stores and then we left it up to the restaurant managers if they wanted to implement that. And just one thing our teams really love.
Wow.
So just listening to music while you're working. Sometimes we have to like, hey, listen to what's playing, You can't have it on that channel. Change it, but. And again, out with the community, so we do make teachers' nights, we partner with elementary schools to help them raise money for their school and whatever they need there. We definitely enjoy doing that, so.
And then I'm just gonna repeat, we've heard flexible schedules a couple different times and. As we talk to our employees and kind of sit down with them and say, hey, what benefits are important to you and what really matters to you, there's a very significant percentage of our employees that, as Stacey was kind of alluding to, it might be school sports or extracurricular activities or other job or parenting. And so sometimes it's, hey, you can only work certain days or you can only work afternoons, you can only work nights. Nice thing for us is we have customers all day long, so it's pretty easy to accommodate those. Maybe those kind of weird schedules you wouldn't see in other positions. I've had people that, hey, I need to drop the kid off at school and kind of get some things ready, and they take an hour break in between their shifts, and we work with that every day. So just understanding different people's situations and needs is critical. And then the other thing I would suggest is really just again, the engagement piece of just communicating with your employees, what is it for you that's important to you, and maybe getting new ideas. Our employees have loved days where we get to dress up in something different other than the uniform. We've done sports days, or wear your favorite jersey, or Hawaii Day, things like that. So, but just different things to kind of change it up.
Okay, I think we'll do one more question. Anybody else? Lots of questions. Okay, I'll throw out one more. How do you balance retention with necessary organizational change, like restructuring or evolving roles? Sometimes things have to change in the organization, and that affects maybe where your talent's gonna go or be. So how does that come into play? Whoever wants to answer.
I'll jump in first. On that one, I feel like communication with leadership first, to make sure that the message that's being sent out there is consistent, that the why is explained. And most of us, as long as the message is consistent and the why is explained, most people can get on board with the change. It may be difficult at first, but those are the two big things that are missing a lot of times that cause the biggest frustration.
I think involving people in that planning, helps out a lot. As Cheri said, explaining the why. If you're having those conversations, and maybe it's a group conversation, maybe it's open-ended, or you have different leaders from different departments as part of that, so they can feel that they're part of the change. So you create that buy-in, and then that buy-in trickles down throughout your organization. That really helps with retention, because people want to know. And in general, you can get people excited about change. People sometimes can be a bit change resistant, but if there's exciting things happening and it's good for the organization and positive things for them, as long as you're communicating and involving, it shouldn't impact your retention rates that much.
For us, our senior leadership, we will move around for different reasons. Sometimes it's for growth. Like I just have a gal who left her restaurant to start running her own. So she's in training to become a restaurant manager. I think, like she said, communication, it's not just, hey, guess what, tomorrow you're going to this restaurant, it's planned in advance. And communicated, and then we kind of set the stage where we have meetings set up one-on-one, so they can get to know each other. Those connection sessions, so that the store manager that's in training can get to know the team. And for whatever reason, we generally lose a couple when a new leader goes in for whatever reason. Maybe the personalities are not the same type, and sometimes that's okay. But yeah, for growth reasons.
Change is a constant. I
said it earlier.
absolutely, yeah, 100%. We see it a lot in operational procedures and teaching our crew how we have to do certain processes. And so I think we hit it right on the head when we talk about communication and involving others, but if I kind of fast forward to the end step, it's don't forget to share the results and the wins and why it was successful. I can think of several times where we implement something new and, oh, change, I don't want to do it that way. I'm not used to doing it that way. I like it the old way. And we go through and we involve the team and we get used to it. And then we share why it was better and the results we got from it. And now we would never go back to the old way because it's just so effective.
Well, you guys have done a great job. Would you join me all in thanking our that was just really good. Like I said, a lot of takeaways. I also want to thank STCU and Jessica as our sponsor today. We really appreciate the audience, both in person and Zoom. And our main topic is kind of unique, and Michael is one of the speakers for that. He's in the room today. It's called Goldilocks Leadership: Authenticity, Accountability, and Framing. So I think it's going to be a kind of fun, interactive time and talking about different leadership styles. So we're looking forward to that next month. If you're here in person, we do have a survey at the back. We appreciate you filling that out. And we are also still doing a call for experts. So if you know anyone that would be a great expert on workplace culture, please nominate them. Or if you have a group in your department that you guys love to present together, nominate yourselves. We're still looking for that. And then with that, we'll have Jessica come up. We'll do our 3 drawings for our door prizes. And anybody else? Yeah, anybody else for a business card?
I didn't bring mine.
Okay.
I didn't bring mine.
Here we go. I'm not looking at them. Okay. Jill Lawson. Oh, there she is. Okay. Austin's gonna hand you your gifts. Yeah. I'm like, McDonald's for dinner. Exactly. I was thinking, if anybody hears that.
This is for the book Shannon brought.
And this is for the book Shannon brought. Sarah from Columbia Ability. Part to buy the book or that Cheri recommended is Irish Krills.
Christ.
Is it Christ?
Yeah.
Sorry,